All right, everybody, we are live. Yeah, you saw Mr. Mayor right there in the opening shot. We had to get the ugliness out of the way real quick. But hey, welcome to the live well here at Fish North Georgia this Thursday night. We got a great episode in store for you. We're going to be talking about the elephant in the room, the lake closures, the ramp closures from the Army Corp of Engineers. I got a couple of reps from them. I'm going to introduce them here in a minute. And we welcome you to bring in your comments, your questions for them as we go. And it's just going to be a fantastic show. So let's go ahead and take care of our sponsors real quick, and then we will get down to the business. Of course, guys, we talk about everybody or every week. Sonar Pros. If you're going to take your boat and get your electronics installed by the best, you need to go to Sonar Pros, 770-530-4505 off Highway 369 on Lake Lanier. This is where the pros take their boats, so you might as well do it if you want it done it right the first time. That's Trent Palmer and the guys. And then, of course, we got Kevin Underwood with Lipsticker Fishing, 678-459-8419. Kevin at lipstickerfishing.com. Check out his Patreon, patreon.com/lipstickerfishing. If you want to go catch some of them Lake Lanier megalodon spotted bass, Kevin's your guy right there. And then we got the best rod sleeve on the market, bar none. That's Evolve Fish. And check them out at evolvefishing.com. We've got some here at Fish North Georgia. They float, got all the protection. Best of all, when you throw them in your rod locker, the hooks do not stay hooked together like them Chinese finger trap cheap rod sleeves that you can get. You might as well get the best, and that's Evolve Fishing. And of course, we got the Money Saver Lure Retriever for all these expensive plugs that you guys are throwing out there on the water. If you want to get it back, you better get you a Money Saver. Goes through the water like a little tiny torpedo. I would say guaranteed to get your bait back, everything, but we know there's no guarantees in life. But if you want the best chance, that's the Money Saver Lure Retriever. If you're on Allatoona, you want to fish with a legend, that's Bill Payne's Guide Service, 706-280-2305. One of the sweetest, nicest men, one of the most knowledgeable anglers in the whole state of Georgia. He does Lake Allatoona. He does seasonal smallmouth trips, and he will do electronics trips to get your boat set up correctly. So that's Bill Payne's Guide Service. And then the young gun on Lake Lanier, Brooks Anderson Fishing. Check out his YouTube, Brooks Anderson Fishing, or his website, brooksandersonfishing.com. One of the up-and-comers, hey, spotted bass Lake Lanier, why they're there, how to catch them, seasonal habits. If you got a young angler, that's the guy for you, Brooks Anderson Fishing. We appreciate him. And, of course, listen, I talk about these guys right here every week. Fishers are hope. Their mission is to glorify God, be servants of his word, and bring those in need to peace and hope that only he can bring. They throw fishing tournaments, for needs as they arise. You can join them on Facebook at Fishers of Hope. And then, of course, if you want to reach out and talk to them, Fishers of Hope Ministry at gmail.com. And, of course, behind me, I got our buddies at Turner Tire here in Jasper, Georgia, 706-253-3339. Tires Alignment, great family business. They're anglers. Support your local businesses. It's where I get my tires. I highly recommend them. In and out, great people. And then we're not going to do the question of the night in the middle of the show. So I'm going to go ahead and do my little pitch for Serve IT. We'll do this. We normally do it in the middle of the show. We're going to do it right now. If your company, big or small, is looking for a complete IT solution, consider the services of Serve IT. Headquartered in Kennesaw, Georgia, and 100% U.S. based, they provide a complete IT solution based upon your company's specific needs. Outstanding customer service and guaranteed customer satisfaction. Go to serveit.com and see for yourself. And guys, if you have a business and you want to get in front of the most loyal eyeballs you can do, get in front of, call us here at Fish North Georgia. Email me, Danny at fngo.com, and see how we can help you make your company grow. So, guys, we appreciate you. We've got people in the comments section already. Yeah, we got a bunch of you guys out there. So, appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to get started. I'm going to, in studio to my left, I've got the mayor, Scott Barnes. You guys know him very well from up here on Lake Lanier. And then to my right, we've got Ron Swinford. And one of the reasons I like Ron being here, Ron's got a career in journalism, and, he covers a lot of government things, in your time. And so I think you'd be an asset here tonight.
Well,
so
it's not my first rodeo when it comes to this kind of stuff.
I understand. And of course, back there, we got Tim McGuire in the house. So there he is running the board. So let's bring in our guest from the Army Corp of Engineers in the Mobile division. And that is Dustin Gautney. I said that right, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Okay. Thank you for being here. You are the Chief Public Relations Officer, correct?
Yes.
With that. And so, I reached out to you. You said you would come on, and I really do appreciate you taking the time. So apparently there's some news around here we kind of heard about. Might be some ramp closures, here on Lake Lanier and all these other core lakes. And so I told you I'd throw you a softball to get started. And we're going to do it this way. just for those that might not be familiar with you or the Corps and what the Corps does, give us a little intro into you and the services that the Corps of Engineers provide.
Oh yeah, well, always it's really wide for us, right? So trying to bring it down to specifically in your area. So there's a small lake called Lake Lanier. That just happens to be the largest core lake in the country. It's really a reservoir, if people don't know that. And basically supplies water not just for Georgia, but Alabama, Florida, throughout the entire tributary there. And is crucial to navigation of their region that we manage. Now, along with basically the locks, dams, all the hydropower that runs off of Lanier, obviously with the lands there, we do provide a lot of recreational resources as well, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are very familiar with.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Tracy Coker, he said, I sound like I've taken 20 hits of Dime Store speed. I'm just excited. I wanted to get the sponsors out of the way so we could talk. And I did take a 5-hour energy about 45 minutes ago. So that might be it. All right. So the other day, news come down that you guys, and I say you guys as in the Corps, we're closing all the ramps on Lake Lanier and several other states, several other lakes around the state. My question, since it's a softball, is what was the Corps' intention and why did they close the ramps and the timing before Memorial Day?
No, I definitely understand that. First of all, it wasn't all the ramps in the original list. It was just those that were not standalone ones that were basically inside of campground or day use parks that we were not able to man. But so the real question is why, right? Like that's everyone's really want to know. So just to kind of clear the air, and then it's not budget cuts. It's nothing like that, which a lot of people feel that it's the budget. People ask like, oh, what does my fees go to, et cetera, things like that. It's not related to that. For people who aren't aware, like we are part of the Department of Defense, right? We actually are part of the Army. There's in the Army Corps, it is part of the Army. So the Department of Defense has actually been on a hiring freeze since January. And just through just natural attrition, along with what's been called deferred resignations, basically people volunteering to resign as we gonna get smaller in the federal government, right? So a lot of those things kind of happening over that time, that period, has really affected our rangers that we have at Lake Lanier, probably the most of any other site. Where currently now we're about half of where we would normally be in personnel, leading to the busiest time of the year. And really what the biggest kicker on that is it wasn't until this week that the administrative leave started for those that had decided to take the resignations. So suddenly you had a loss of all of those rangers all at one time, and no opportunity really to backfill them because of the hiring freeze. We weren't able to do our normal summer hires, things like that too, that we kind of flex out during the summer to really like be able to have a quality time for people coming to our parks during that time. So that's really been the biggest issue. Luckily, we have been able to work around and reassess some things, and also work with some elected officials to help use local law enforcement to backfill things like that too, to reduce the amount of closures down now from like 21 to 11 now is the current where we're standing at. And we're continually reassessing this basically for the entire summer. Obviously, if things lighten up with the hiring freeze, and it can bring on summer hires, and we'll be able to open up even more is the intent of what we really want to do.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you this. If in a perfect world, how many rangers would there be for just Lake Lanier if it was fully staffed?
Believe I obviously we don't have the lead here, but I believe their numbers they probably prefer is usually in like 25 to 30. I think they're currently acting at 13 was the number that they told me they got reduced down to.
Okay. I'm going to be honest. I've been on the lake a lot, especially over the past 5 years. And a lot of people have mentioned this. I'm not sure that I've ever seen in the past 5 years a ranger while I've been at the lake. Can you explain to that? What are they doing if we're not seeing them while we're at the ramps and stuff?
Yeah. So usually they're patrolling. Obviously, Lanier's territory is quite large. for only 20 or so people to be able to patrol all at once.
Sure.
So like you see it, like they'll be going by in trucks. Obviously, a lot of them are also on boats on the water as well. And that's really for us a lot of the larger safety concerns with there. Obviously, because it's a very popular lake and it's a very popular party area during the summer. So
Right.
we do very much have to patrol a lot of that. Now, you might not see what they're wearing. It's not like what you would typically say is your standard ranger outfit that you might see. Like sometimes, especially the ones on the boats, it's usually more of like a dry fit type, like gray shirt, something like that too. So it might not be as easily identifiable as a typical ranger with the Smokey Bear hat type thing.
Yeah, right.
So that might be also why too. But another thing too, so we also do not want our rangers basically interfere if you're just out there with your family doing good, like that. You don't want a ranger smoke, behind your back the entire time, right? Like we want you to be able to enjoy the park. So they are a little bit standoffish unless they do see something of concern. Visiting with either the family or things like that, or obviously like things like fire prevention, other things like that. So they very much do key on those kind of things.
Okay, I got a question from a viewer, kind of a comment question from Trip Fishing. This just happened all of a sudden. It just seemed to fell all of a sudden. One day, the news is out. They're closing the ramps. Why was there no, I won't use the word warning or public hearings or just saying, hey, guys, this is coming up? Why was it all of a sudden, boom, they're closed? Because I think that's what took a lot of people by surprise. Yeah. And made them shocked, and to be quite honest, made them angry.
In the week.
Oh no!
And the timing of Memorial Day.
Right. Trust me, we would have much rather this been post Memorial Day weekend. So with the deferred resignations that happened for federal employees, so what happened is their names just got put on a list, and then they were just processed, and then they weren't actually given dates until much later. So we had no real control about when those administrative leave dates started for them. And really, that's why it was all very sudden for us, and then it ended up being impacting for all of you as well. So we weren't really able to control much of those dates. And what happened is it basically just came down right before it. So we had to quickly adjust what we were doing for the better safety of all our customers, everyone who comes to the parks to one would being obviously a little risk averse, right? Going into a busy weekend. Right. So we were basically having to slim down our patrols, all that way, and then the range of the other patrols. So that's why we had to very much so bring down the amount of parks that would be open. Since then, like I said, in the last 24 hours, we're able to get some more local support from law enforcement, especially with traffic mitigation. Is probably one of the biggest issues. If anyone's been around the parks during Memorial Weekend, that could be quite hectic to kind of filter out through that stuff. So that really. Timing wasn't great for us either, to be honest. That's the honest answer. We didn't have very much control over that, but we're just trying to do the best we can for the safety of all of you.
Can you tell me where the directive came? At what level of the Corps did the decision be made that said, okay, we got to do this now? I'm sure that came from above Mobile, correct?
Well, yeah, it's at the headquarters level of when they actually process the resignations, and they come down, and basically it's on the local leadership there to figure out how you're going to continue mission, right? How you're going to keep going, how you're going to do things with limited personnel. And so that's some of that's balance between the local office there at Lake Lanier and the headquarters in Mobile.
Okay.
To try like balance those two out, and then working with our division the lead is in Atlanta anyways. The Mobile district falls under, so also they're very much so involved as well.
Okay. And I got questions that people have given me too. And guys in the comment section, hey, listen, there's a bunch of questions. I'll try to get to them, but if you see it scroll past and we missed it, type it again. With that being said about, people resigning, all that, is there a hiring freeze right now going on?
Yes, that's that. And that really is for us, that's the biggest handcuff, to be honest. And we are unique with it within the military, right? We're the civil branch of military, and we're the only ones that have rangers, right? we're the only ones that can maintain those kind of things. So a little bit falls between the cracks a little bit of what we do. So we're kind of working through that still. Luckily we do have a few elected officials who they're probing a little bit higher up to see what we can do to open up more opportunities for the Corps specifically, beyond just the typical locks and dams, things that we do have exceptions to hire for.
Right.
To be able to do that, so we can actually, especially coming to these summer months, right? You want to be able to enjoy the federal lands.
Right. Here's another question from an individual. Does the Corps want to get out of the business of running parks on Corps lakes?
Oh no,
are you consider privatizing?
Well, we already do somewhat and even at Lanier, at some of the locations there too, are split managed between local, not local business, but basically local government there, and sharing a lot of the maintenance of those parks, things like that too. And Lake Lanier has actually been one of the ones that have piloted a lot of that program for the entire country, actually. So we will probably continue to pursue some of that where it's best fitted, right? But however, we do also very much so love our Rangers. They're basically the face of the Corps itself. So we do not want to diminish that at all from what we do in a lot of our federal lands. So we're not wanting to give up the role with what we do, but we do, we're open to different opportunities. And we're flexible, if anything, right? So we will try to do the best we can for this situation for the tax-paying citizens.
Let me ask this one question before we bring Tim on, because he's now. So let me ask you this: Fish, North Georgia, can we take over Little Hall for you? Listen, I'll give the Corps a 20% cut if you guys let me run Little Hall. I'll keep the bathrooms clean, the place is locked, nice and tight, locked down. Grass cut, everything. Would that be an option?
You're definitely have to talk to Tim about that one, not me.
Oh, so Tim's the guy I need to talk to about that. Let's pull Tim up. Tim, all right, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I apologize for the delay. Quite a bit of technical difficulty on my end.
Hey, buddy, listen, I can't run these things, so I understand that completely. So, Tim Rainey, and if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're the operations manager on Lake Lanier?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so just for all the people that might want to know, what exactly is your responsibilities? What do you do on a day-to-day basis as far as with Lake Lanier? Yeah, I know that's a lot. I know it's a lot. I think he froze up. Yeah, I think he's got a bad connection.
I don't know if you can hear me now. I'm having.
We can. Yeah. Don't worry about the pictures. If we can hear what you're saying, you can go ahead and just tell us.
Different missions: recreation, environmental stewardship, water management,
I think
water quality, water supply, hydroponics, and I've got the experts under me that actually make it happen.
Okay. I think we got the gist of that. So when it comes to Lake Lanier, you're the first, I don't want to say line of defense, but are you the first person that people need to talk to when it comes to what's going on with the lake?
Well, depending on the topic, as I'm manager, so I've got a staff under me. The recreation, if you have recreation issues, you go to Eddie Grimes. He's our park ranger, chief of the recreation section. If you have dock permits, you go to the chief ranger of the shoreline section. Actually, now that's vacant, caught up in all this hiring freeze. So then you go to the environmental stewardship program manager, Craig Sowers. But for flood risk management, that would be me. For water supply, that would be me. Water quality would be me. Hydropower actually is no longer truly under me. They split off. There's a separate manager for the hydropower section. But most of the others, I'll have staff. If it needs to get to me, it can get to me.
Okay. All right. So a lot of people, and either one of you guys can answer this. A lot of people want to know when they go to a Corps park and they pay that $5 fee or whatever it is, or guys like Scott that get a permit, where does that money go to as far as within the Corps, or does it go somewhere else? Does the Corps have access to that? How is that money collected and where does it go?
I'll be happy to take it, Dustin.
Yeah.
Okay. So you might need to repeat some of those, but paying $5 or $8 the day use fee or buying the $45 annual pass, all that money goes straight to the U.S. Treasury. Even camping, going into the campgrounds and paying one fee and ran them and collect the fees, all that money went straight to the Treasury. I don't know if you're familiar with our partnerships with the local jurisdictions for the operations of the campgrounds, but we are co-managing the campgrounds now, and our authorities allowed us, when we're in that relationship, in the county, the local jurisdictions collecting the fees, they can now keep the fees and reinvest it back into the park. When you're paying special event permit fees, that goes to the Treasury. What other fees you talking about?
Well,
Majority of them go straight to the Treasury and do not come back.
And I guess Congress set it up that way.
Correct.
Okay, so let me ask you this: as a citizen, if I'm going to spend money on a lake and it's a local lake, why did they not set it up to where you guys could put that in your budget for the lake? To take care of Lanier. Like, there's just an example. There's an electric only reservoir up here that's run by Cherokee County Water Authority. It costs $5 a day to get in, but the Cherokee County Water Authority does not put it in their budget. They let Mark, that runs the lake, take every dollar of that and reinvest it into the lake. Why are the lakes for the Corps not set up that way? And I realize it's Congress, but can that be changed?
Well, I have some additions to that. There's an item, a piece of legislation every 2 years that's passed by Congress called the Water Resources Development Act. It was just last passed in 2024. In 2024, as part of that WRDA, the Corps of Engineers did obtain authority to keep 80% of those recreation fees. Now that law is passed, the agency has, I believe, up to 2 years to get that implemented. So that will be coming. Everything I said a minute ago with everything going to the Treasury is going to change, and that money will come back to the lakes.
That's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
That is a good thing. Okay. Ron, you got a question?
Well, looking around last night, doing some investigation on this, I found lots of other lakes throughout the country that they said they were going to have some impact, not just Lake Lanier. But as we all know, Lake Lanier, the most visited Corps lake in the nation. And Altoona's up there close too. Those are two major things right here before the holidays. And is this going to be something that continues all summer? Is this going to be something that hopefully after they see what happened Memorial Day weekend, are they then going to be able to, all right, look, we need to fix this? Or do you have any idea yet?
I can take that. That's fine.
Okay.
So currently we are in a hiring freeze, I believe, until June to July. So that's pretty much what they do with the hiring freeze at that point, is going to basically tell us what we can do, really. So if it is lifted, we are able to hire and refill those vacant ranger positions, and we'll hopefully be able to return to what would be a normal full recreational summer. If it is extended, then it would basically maintain to where we are. So right now we are in the federal side. We are basically in a holding pattern to find out what the next legislation is going to be as far as regards to the Department of Defense's current hiring freeze.
Okay, well, kind of as a follow-up to that then, what made this change so quick to where we now have some open that weren't before? Is this something that was an oversight and we have to figure it out? Or is this just a lot of people complained, let's see what we can do to help them out?
Well, a couple of things as far as the immediacy of it. So like I said before, we had a series of deferred resignations. The fork in the road was the popular term thrown out there. But there wasn't just one, it was several iterations of it, and there was a Department of Defense one alone by itself. And so what we have seen is a lot of the administrative leave begin dates for those resignations. It really just now started to impact us now, and very immediately. And I think it's last week was this last series of their start dates of when those people are basically resigned, but still put on administrative leave. So you can't backfill them because the current hiring freeze either. So you're basically left with a vacant position, and it's just we had no control of when that administrative leave started, and we're given very little lead time to prepare for it. Is really what it is. So it's that's why we're in the current situation we are now with Lanier. Obviously, different project sites had different impacts, right? So maybe they only had a couple that took it and they were able to continue mission. However, I know Lanier specifically were impacted greatly than a lot of our other recreational areas.
Okay. One popular question that's going around, a lot of guys bought the yearly passes or paid for a permit fee for a tournament, and they've done it. They got the yearly pass. Will the Corps refund those if, like, for Scott, and Scott can talk about this a little bit, he goes out of Little Hall. He's only got one more tournament this year, but Little Hall is still on the closed list. Will he get that money refunded since it goes to the Treasury? And if so, how does that work?
Tim, maybe you're the best one to tackle that.
Yeah. An absolute answer, I don't know. There's a process. Remember, we're the government. There's bureaucracy. I would expect, I can't promise, since that is based on us or due to us, that permit fee would be refunded. Our folks, my staff, will be working with the applicants or the permit holders to see if we can relocate you to another ramp and see if that's amenable. I just, at my level, my chief ranger recreation probably knows the answer offhand, but I don't know what the process is on that refund.
Okay, but you're saying there is a possibility.
There is a possibility. I can't explain the process. If
Okay.
Recreation chief ranger, he might be able to.
All right, Scott, do you want to chime in
I
on
just want
that?
to introduce myself. Tim, how are you? Good to meet you. I know Chris Arthur over there, and I've dealt with, over the past 15 years, Big Jason Couch and John Matlack, and I think Ernest No. And, I kind of caught wind of this back in, believe it or not, in January. I've been running a lot of events on there, just like a lot of other guys that hold tournaments on the lake. And we primarily have always chosen Little Hall due to the fact of its location, size of the parking lot, and the pavilion there. And it's just an easy place to hold our functions. But, we discovered that, my events are between October through the month of May, and we don't fish in the summer. And, being a little bit more specific of that is during those winter months, there's not a lot of pleasure boaters or what have you. So it just makes a great location. And we kind of plan to get those permits throughout the year. And we tried to get a permit back in the month of February for an event that was coming up in April for our gambler tournament. And when I was emailing Ernest, super guy, by the way, and I won't disclose, anything because I'm aware of what's taking place, just due to the fact that in March we discovered that no communication was happening. It had kind of shut off, and then out of the blue, I got an email that said, "Hey, we're not going to be able to do anything with any further permits until we acknowledge what's going on." Don't know. I guess that was part of the discussion of what's the results are today, right? So we kind of figured something was happening until we could not get the permit, and we didn't do it. The point I'm trying to make is that Little Hall is a great location, and I know that y'all have announced some openings of some other ramps, but man, if there's anything y'all can do to kind of consider, positioning Little Hall to be one of those other ramps open up, it would be great, but I don't know what we would need to do that.
You'd have to let Fish North Georgia take it over. I told Dustin that's what I do.
And Tim, I appreciate you saying you could probably relocate us to another ramp and so forth. And maybe that's something we can talk on a sidebar about, or Chris Arthur, somebody can let me know. But I'm not worried about the permit money, to be honest with you. We got one more left, but there's other guys that are, because it's not just affecting my event. You have other people that have already paid for several permits for tournaments going out of Little Hall and other ramps that, I'm sure they're going to probably send a bunch of emails and know where to do that and find out if they're going to get their money back. So I'm sure you're prepared for that and already expecting that as well.
You got that? Was there a question with it too?
Well,
Yes, a statement.
I guess I was rambling for sure.
He was rambling.
Yeah.
Well, one thing to consider is this is the time of the year that the winter tournaments start applying for
Correct.
permits. Now, granted, it would be nice right now to know, all right, say October, we're going to start our program or start our tournaments back up. Can we have it at Little Hall, or are we going to have to move it to Van's Tavern or things like that? And I realize you don't have all that information yet because this has kind of hit you all at one time. But those kind of things are going to start happening. And for a lot of these tournament series, not just Scott's, but a lot of them,
Everyone.
they're fishing multiple lakes and things like that. And they really need to be able to kind of lock in these dates early. Is there anything that I realize y'all are kind of working as this has come up, but is there anything that you're going to be able to do for them?
Yet to be seen. As Dustin mentioned, this is kind of going to be fluid. You acknowledge it. We just don't know at the moment. I believe, Scott, you mentioned Ernest. You know, he was one of those folks that took the DRP.
Yep.
So now all that coordination and a few other folks that took it or retired or resigned. I don't know. This is beeping. I hope it's not going to shut me down. We just got to find the people to do that workload. So
you do recommend to just continue to try to submit and find a place, or hold off from submitting application? Because a lot of people plan, you know.
Yeah, I'd go ahead and submit with the understanding that it may be a bit before we get back to you, and
Okay.
until we know what's going on, as Dustin mentioned with the freeze and what we can do with staffing to handle workload, we just may not know. I have put my name and email and phone number in the chat. I don't know where it's going. It says private chat, so maybe to the host, but that can be shared with anybody. As I mentioned, primarily deal with the staff, but if you're having issues, don't hesitate to call me or send an email. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, that's good to know. Now, you know, we're coming at you from a fishing perspective, but you got all kinds, of course, people, your pleasure boaters, your kayakers, all those things that utilize the lake. And of course, you got a lot of bank fishermen that utilize some of these parks as well. There was a comment up there about safety. You're condensing all these people into lesser boat ramps, lesser space. And Dustin, you mentioned you got less rangers to patrol the lake. You know, how are you guys going to navigate the safety aspect? And will you have rangers present at the ramps that are going to be open now?
Yeah, my fear is that you've got limited boat docks and boat ramps open, and you're going to have some arguments out there in the parking lots regardless, and since it's been condensed. So if the safety is a concern, you know, I guess you're considering local authorities to help you out with that.
Yeah, again, Dustin, you or me, I'm happy to go.
Either one of you. Y'all just jump on it.
That's you in the local area there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the reason I do that, I follow Dustin because he is our public affairs officer, and you know, this is public. Anyway.
Yes, sir.
Yes, part of the reason the number of closed parks went down was high-level negotiations, discussions, from what I understand, federal congressional members and state congressional members and our higher-ups, division commanders, and maybe even headquarters, but just high-level discussions. And it was communicated to my office, to me, that in those discussions and opening these additional ramps that are standalone ramps, so to speak, they aren't combined with the day use and other recreational amenities, that the local jurisdictions, sheriff's office or whomever it is, would handle those issues. We made the comment and identified just what you said. When I say we, my office up to our leadership, that we fully expect. We have a problem right now today. Just for example, single cars parking in the boat trailer spots. And all I can say right now to your question is we have been assured that local law enforcement will handle those issues. It was communicated to me that we made it clear that park rangers, Corps of Engineers park rangers, would not be serving those areas. And, we're going to just wait and see what happens. We agree with you. I agree with you. I am fearful of some conflict at those boat ramps.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, if we're eliminating places for people to go picnic, then they're going to go in their single cars and take up all your trailer spaces. And that is what we are going to be expecting the local jurisdictions to handle. And we are in the process of that communication just this afternoon with the sheriff's office.
Okay. Yeah, that's just something to kind of think about.
Yeah,
it's possible people are going to be people.
Right. This weekend, and you guys know this as well as anybody, this weekend is probably not the weekend for this to have happened, but it has happened. So I know y'all are just doing the best that you can. But Dustin, didn't really understand from you. Is this affecting other lakes in the Mobile region? Are we seeing other things, or is it just Lanier and Altoona?
Those are the two primary ones, but it does affect even though like Alpine River Lakes, like some of our other facilities as well. But those are usually only a couple of closures at most. I think even at my office, who responds to basically inquiries from our entire area, we only have one or two specifically, even from Altoona. Everything else has been centered around Lake Lanier. So that's really why so much focus has been placed on that as opposed to the other ones.
Okay. Got a ton of questions, but I see Henry Cowan's right there, so I'm going to throw it out before I get to my next one. Will any ramps and parks on the Chattahoochee River between Buford Dam and Morgan Falls be shutting down?
On the Chattahoochee River, the only ones we operate, the Corps of Engineers, is Lower Pool West, and that will be open.
That will be
open. The remainder
open.
of those boat ramps or access points are either private, county, or National Park Service. I do understand National Park Service is federal. I have no idea what their plans or issues are. I just don't. But
Okay.
Lower Pool West, just below the dam, will remain open.
Okay. I've got to ask this question because I promised guys today I would, and I probably heard this more than anything. And I realize that you're probably not going to be able to get into it, but since I promised I would ask the question, I'm going to do it, keep my word. You mentioned, Tim, that this came from higher up. And I've talked to, you mentioned some of the government getting involved, representatives and such. And I talked to several of those last night. In fact, I was on the phone until 2 a.m. with one. Talking about this. With everything in our country the way it is, we're split 50-50 down the line, politically. And I've talked to Republicans and I've talked to Democrats, and they're both spinning it. But a lot of people believe that this is a political motivated decision, either A, to hurt one side, B, to hurt the other. I'm not in politics. I don't know what goes on at that level, but I will even tell you that some of the people I talked to even tried to spin me that way a little bit. I try to be Switzerland. I try to be neutral because that's what we do here. But when you're getting questions and comments about the political aspects of this, it's hard to deny that it exists. What do you guys, and this might be more Tim because he's more local than Dustin, but what do you do?
I got it. This is a national issue with us. So in the Corps of Engineers, we're apolitical, right? So part of the Department of Defense, regardless, right? So the other saying of the Corps, we do not politicize safety. This is really what this is about. So it really comes down to, just because of the current environment we are in with reducing the federal workforce, it just in the situation, we didn't have the manpower to adequately provide those services at Lake Lanier. Like that's just the bottom line, right? There's no portion of us ever wanting to close down any of our properties. like ever for those kind of things. And really, that's why we kind of hope that, you know, once wide the numbers of federal employees are reduced to where we want to be in the Department of Defense, that once the hiring freeze is lifted, we're able to backfill some of those losses to where we have seen that like a real need is for, you know, because obviously this is showing that there is a need for Rangers, that we can still get back to those numbers, so we can still operate at 100%.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with some of the comments back to you, Dustin. Like one about the ramps. It's really not about safety. Trash cans overflowing. Never seen a single Corps person at any of them. Everything is automated for a reason. The public sentiment is this, and I mean that. I think that's where the public sentiment is at. How do you guys, you know, fix that? Because there's a distrust between the citizen and the government. Yes, you are the Department of Defense, but that is still part of the government in everybody's eyes. Somewhere there's a disconnect between the citizen and the government. How do we fix that? And, you know, when I see comments, when you say something and I got somebody saying that's not true or this, you know, that's just the way that people feel. So where did we go wrong with all of that?
I mean, you're never going to win over completely, you know, distrust of the government. Like there's always going to be a little bit of that, right? So people got to know, they want to know where their taxpayer money goes, things like that too. But you have to understand the core, and obviously like the people who work at these lakes, like the Rangers, they're part of the community themselves, right? Like they're out there on the water with all of you at the same times. Like they very much so. A lot of them are from the area. They grew up in the area. You know, that's very dear to them as well, right? As far as this like maintenance things like that too, like we always strive our best to be able to maintain like beautiful parks for everyone. However, being realistic, right? Like people are people.
Yeah.
Right. And we've seen that with people just dumping things like that too, especially after busy holidays, things like that too. And then people question, why is the trash overflowing? And you're like, you know, meanwhile, it's Memorial Day, right? Like, right. There's no one there 24/7 emptying in the garbage. Like we wish we could be Disneyland, but it's just, we can't, there's no way to have that many personnel to maintain that level of expectations. But we do continually, you know, take care of the parks or refresh that as well, and also partner with a lot of other organizations who do help that as well, along with our pretty robust volunteers. So I mean, it is a process. People do have to be a little bit realistic at times too, as well.
Okay,
I'll get one thing.
Yeah.
And you know, I guess it's just an ask, really. You talk about disconnect and the mistrust. You know, I don't engage on Facebook. I look at stuff, just any social media, and the amount of stuff I see on there that is just flat inaccurate surprises me. I don't know why, but one of my comments usually is, I wish they'd just call. So just call me, send me an email, ask me if it's true, ask me a question. Whatever. I'll try to dispel anything, but I'm not going to debate it on social media. Call me and ask me, and I'll tell you. I'm a very transparent person.
Okay, Scott's got a question, but before I forget it, it gets too far up in the comments. If you don't mind, scroll up to Tyler F's. It just went off the screen right there. I saw it. Tyler F right there at the top. And this is kind of like, okay, so this is, you know, maybe he needs to call you, and this would be good, but it'll give you a chance. His comment, pull it up. Safety for who? Because Dustin, you said it's all about safety. I put my boat in, park my truck, and go fishing. How is the United States Army Corps of Engineers keeping me safe?
So for the fishermen, yeah, that may be true. We may not see you. I heard Dustin talk about that earlier. You may come in, you may launch, you may go. You may come back, you may never see us. If we have staffing, maybe we're on the water, maybe we give you a safety check. Maybe we give another boat a safety check that doesn't know what they're doing or is impaired, and we call DNR. And maybe they get off the lake. Maybe they don't have the right equipment and we get them off the lake. Maybe they don't crash into you because of it. These are all a lot of what ifs. I'm trying to tie it to you.
Yes, sir.
Or it may not be. You know, you're perfectly fine. You're not worried about it. But the other visitors, if you're perfectly safe and good, we're still trying to manage and keep safe the other visitors. And I want to go to the first part of that question, safety for who? Another big part of this, as far as the closures and staffing, as we keep saying, another part is safety for our employees. We talked about potential conflict in the boat ramps and just the sheer number of visitors we have. Our rangers are put out there pretty much on weekends, and all they do is direct traffic and close parks when it gets full, open it back up, let them in. There's a lot of irate people because they can't get in. We are looking also for the safety of our employees, and we can't continue to do what we have been doing with the number of parks with the limited staff we have. So we do have to consider them as well.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And we hadn't really discussed that much, and I really haven't seen that even being mentioned on social media and all that. All right, Scott's got a question, and then Ron's got one. So Scott, go ahead with yours.
Yeah, a little bit different topic, but still kind of just from my knowledge, and some other people may already know this, but I have seen several boats on Lanier that are sinking. And there's one in Shoal Creek that has been there, I know, for a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I wouldn't say 2 years, a year and a half for sure. And that boat has to be, or could possibly be leaking fluids or oils or what have you. And I've seen some, in other areas for quite some time. Is that the Corps' responsibility to remove that boat? And why do they sit so long? That's number one. Number two is there's a lot I've seen over the years that, shoal markers could be missing or hit or what have you. How long does that typically take and is that y'all's responsibility to, go back out and put those markers up and organize it and all that? But are those two, part of y'all's function to take care of those? And if so, why haven't those boats been moved? And if not, why haven't those boats been moved? Just curious.
All right, I'm going to go to the second part first. As far as the buoys and markers, that is our responsibility. The operations and maintenance of those markers is the Corps of Engineers. Back in the, 70s or 80s, DNR and the Corps signed an agreement that we would maintain them. But let's take I'll mention something real quick before I go on, but let's take a slow no wake zone. If we will put those buoys out per DNR's direction, because if a slow no wake zone is not in DNR's what I call the buoy book, it's not enforceable anyway. So we have to work together with DNR on the locations of regulated areas. Boats keep out, slow no wake, no ski, etc. Hazard markers, that's ours. We have been not good at maintaining those. A lot of that has to do with, again, number of volume. I think we right now have about 60 work orders in to correct or fix some of the markers. Some of that is due to just how we have to do it. We have a maintenance contractor that goes and does that work for us. But when we get a report of one down, we need to go inspect to find out exactly which one of the markers it is. Every single marker has a Corps of Engineers ID, and we have a database that you can go online. Somebody call me if you're not familiar with it, or email me. I'll give you the website. If you see a marker down, you can go on that website. You can see if it's been reported already. You can see the last time it was repaired, or you can report it. And more importantly, you can give us that USACE ID number, and we know exactly which one it is. Once we confirm which one it is, then we tell the contractor to go out and do it. If he's got 60 or so work orders in, of course, it may go to the bottom unless we tell him it's a high traffic area and we need to move that one up. So there is a process. We got caught up at one point, I think, last year, but now we're back behind again. And again, it goes to kind of like Ernest, one of the rangers that managed that program took DRP. So we might get behind the scenes again. Moving over to the abandoned boats, that everybody points their fingers. I point the finger at the county points the finger at the state, and the state points the finger at me, and we go around in circles. At the end of the day, it's federal property. If it's abandoned, we, the Corps of Engineers, should remove it. We call them ADDV, abandoned and derelict docks and vessels, because it's not just boats, it's also docks. We simply don't have the money and resources to do it. I've put in budget packages the last 10 years to get money to do it. We partner with the Lanier Association. They've been able to get money from the state to remove a lot of those boats. It's just a resource issue. And yeah, they can sit there for years before they get removed.
Okay, I appreciate that answer. Go ahead, Ron.
Well, looking back now, I'm sure that y'all have had an interesting couple of days, and with all this coming down at one time, coming down on one of the busiest, if not the busiest weekend of the year for a lake the size of Lanier, with the number of visitors it's going to get. Do you wish now, maybe back in January or February, there might have been some notice put out that this was a possibility this year? Not that you didn't know it was going to be this month. I realize that. But this is something that communication between you and the public here might have at least tempered some of these bad feelings that are coming out, because looking through some of the comments that are coming in, some of them are not just mad about what's happening. They're mad about, why didn't we know it was going to happen? Now, I realize Dustin has talked to that a little bit already, but is there anything that you can learn from this now? Because it looks like this may not be a one-time thing. It may not happen here again, but it may happen other places. Is this something that you're going to learn from? And if so, what have you learned from it?
I see that. As far as what we knew would happen, I could tell you, if anyone's worked for the federal government in a kind of situation with this, we didn't really know the full impacts of obviously trying to reduce down in forces and stuff like that, which it's happened before. I think the Clinton administration happened. We don't really fully know the full impacts of which portions that we're looking at, like how they'd affect certain things, and even then, like certain policy changes within the Department of Defense. How does that actually end up affecting a civil branch like us? That's usually not. It's usually not the first forethought when you think of the warfighter, right? So you got to think of that trickle down effect, right? Now we do know that because of that, like, hey, this might actually end affect the general public, and how they are able to come to our recreational areas. And so that might not have been the forethought in the Department of Defense of those kind of administration choices. So that we do now know a little bit, and there could be a good side of this, that we could get more exceptions to beyond the lock and dam operator, to include rangers into that. Is I think moving forward, where I would hope that we can kind of go, so we can kind of prevent other kind of things like that happening with other core properties.
Okay. I saw somebody in the comments. This is for you, Dustin. Alabama lakes. Any of this happening to Alabama lakes?
Last I have from the Alabama lakes, I will say they still have shortages in employees because of this, but they were able to maintain their properties and stuff like that. Now, none of them are near the size of Lanier. We do have to understand that none of the locations are anywhere remotely to the same size. So they are a little more isolated because of that.
Okay. There was a question, and Scott, let me do this, and then you can ask another question. I saw a comment. If Lake Lanier and say Allatoona are your two biggest lakes, most visited and all that, why does the Corps have resources at other lakes if they're small, isolated? Why can that not be transferred over to what's basically your number one lake, I want to say, as far as visitation? Why do we not take Guy A from, say, Carter's Lake over here in Georgia and send him to Lanier and help out? Or, what's the reasoning behind that? And that was in the comment section.
We got two parts there, right? Like,
everything's two parts.
It's one thing to try to move someone from Alabama River Lakes, like, or in Mississippi, over to suburb Atlanta, right? Like that it's not relatable in that. And at the same time, too, we're not going to limit, since we have the waterways, we have locks and dams, things like that, and recreational areas. You're not going to just take away completely recreational areas from those counties, right? Like just as one of their, like, same as they would be very angry as well on that side if they completely lost all of theirs.
Right.
Over Rangers facilitate recreation at Lanier instead, right? So we're working from a limited pool. Like they're not being added to. It's just the same pool of employees, and you're just trying to mitigate what you can. So it's kind of really where we are until basically the handcuffs come off, and we can kind of backfill a lot of those lost positions.
Okay. Do you have one?
You know, my memory's short, so maybe you've already addressed this, but is the parks, Tim, that are open on Lanier based on that announcement as of today or last night that you're reopening, is that a temporary fix? Could it possibly be that y'all change your mind and you're going to continue to close those? Or is this something that the ones that y'all have announced that are open going to continue to be open?
From my perspective, and I don't know, Dustin can chime in. I'm the one down here on the field getting the directives. So as far as I know, the 11 that are closed now and the 21 or whatever it is that are open now, that's it. That being said, I say that's it up until we figure out something else with the hiring freeze. That being said, that list I've been directed as well is fluid. If something occurs somewhere and we got to close another one, that might happen. If we're looking at situations and the counties or somebody come in and say they can do more over here, well, maybe we can open it. So it is going to be fluid. So I can't really speak to it, but we are going to have the ability to change that list if needed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Round Dog, when do the softball questions stop and the real questions begin? Round Dog, I will go ahead and offer that opportunity for you to put one in the comment section and I will ask it. So whatever, your real question. Philip Hutchinson has one. With things ongoing, will this affect the relationship between the Corps of Engineers that was fostering with Georgia DNR in regards to fixing issues related to the stratification turnover cycle? This is a long-term question for Tim.
Are you referring? Yeah, no, that's not going to affect it at all. We're still doing the analysis of our combination releases during stratification to improve the dissolved oxygen in the river. When that data is analyzed, I hope it's soon. Our data analysis unit in Mobile is doing all that. We will have to determine the benefits, the ecological benefits of that, and then have to weigh that against the loss of hydropower benefits, because we did derate the house unit 1.5 megawatts or 2 megawatts. So we're losing part of the hydropower mission and trying to gain benefits in the environmental stewardship mission. I hope it wins out that the ecological benefits are greater, but we have to get to that decision point with the data, and I am not the decision maker. So that's soon to be. Well, that's yet to be determined, but this has no impact on that.
Okay. There were some questions about the county. If a county came to you right now and said, hey, we want to take over Little Hall, what is that, Hall County? Or is that Dawson?
I think it's Hall.
What's the process? What is the process of a county taking over a ramp?
So we, in talking with the counties, at least for Scythe, and I know Hall will, or maybe it's in my email. We can lease the properties to them, or we can license the property to them. So of course now they're wanting to take them over. Unfortunately, there is a process to this. If they leasing a park to a county could probably take a year. So we thought maybe we can license it. We are exploring the licenses with our real estate division. That could probably occur quicker, but it still may be a couple months before we could get licenses issued. We are exploring those opportunities. We looked at the partnership opportunity authority we have, and right now we can't figure out how that will help us because it's a staffing issue. Because in those partnerships we still do the patrol. If we can figure out how to do that where we're not doing the patrol and maybe we're cutting the grass and cleaning the bathrooms and they're doing the patrol, maybe we can get there. There is still more exploration going on. We have not stopped looking at alternative ways to get these places open.
Okay, Ron.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, Ron's got a question.
Yeah, I'm kind of piggybacking off of one that's in the comments here from Brian. Are you guys in the least bit worried? I mean, because of when this is hitting, you couldn't have picked a worse time. And then if it goes all summer, you're going to lose at least part of 4th of July and Labor Day as well, if nothing improves. Are y'all worried about the impact that you're going to have from loss of fees and things like that? Because the fewer ramps that are open, the fewer parks that are open, you're going to lose some of your income. I realize this all goes to the Treasury, but at the same time, does that bother you about then trying to staff next year because, well, you lost money this year?
Yes.
I mean, I'll take it. Like, what about the fees part? Like Tim said, it's currently going to the Treasury, so that's not a direct impact currently. And like obviously, when we kind of see, obviously how much people want to use these lands, right? The recreational areas, it does help us, fight for the taxpayers that like, hey, yes, these are very much so what we want to be maintained at 100%. So it does help us argue to keep the number of rangers that we're allotted for things like that too. So there are benefits to that. We kind of see that in a bigger scale, right? That very much so the Corps of Engineers recreational division kind of stuff is very robust and very, very well needed in the country for everyone to enjoy these lands.
Okay, I understand that recreation is not the reason these lakes were built. We understand it's for flood control. I think we looked at it the other night. Hydropower, navigation in some, because like the water coming out of Lanier eventually goes into Apalachicola Bay and all that. My question is, who owns the water? Who physically owns the water that's in Lake Lanier?
In what state, you ask?
In Georgia right now, like right now, whatever drop of water is in Lanier right now, who the hell owns that water?
So if anyone's familiar with the term the water wars,
yeah.
Like I said, there is a smidgen of truth into what state do you ask, who it belongs to. So really, that the Corps of Engineers is in our role, so with that is basically responsible for maintaining that flow between the different states and the levels that it responds to. And this is my show currently still battled in court over 50 years around, right? So
yeah, right.
yeah. It doesn't all belong to Georgia. I know, like they that's what they wanted to say, but it doesn't just all 100% belong to Georgia. So that's kind of a real big part of that, right? And so in our responsibility as directed by Congress, we do provide the water resources for all the states involved. And so knows it's Georgia, Alabama, Florida, right? Those the ones who are fighting over the water. Kind of knows that. So and our responsibility is often a big portion of that is also flood control too, right? So those water flows do change based on that, and we do live in a very wet area. So you see that every year, right? As we try to do our best for the health and safety of especially all the shoreline area that it's really the largest mission of what that water is for and what the Corps does.
Okay, I got a serious question I got to ask, and then I got one that's not so serious, but it is kind of serious. Can the Corps of Engineers ban the use of forward-facing sonar in Lanier as well? Since you've already pissed everyone off, just go full send. I listen. It was in the comment section. I had to say it. But a serious question is, how much of this consideration to local economies? Just say if there was a gas station right beside Little Hall, if there was one there, one that might exist, how much consideration in when you guys are determining which ramp to close is given to the local area, the local jurisdiction or economy?
I'll chime in. Just
okay.
As standard practice, every single park that was put forward for closure consideration had what's basically a park information sheet with it. And there's about 25 items on there that we look at. And I completed those, filled out all the information and all the economics, and a lot of things are in there. And that went in with each package. So to answer your question, I don't know. I put it together and it's required to be looked at and it's sent up the chain. I, trust that somebody up the chain did all that analysis, but I can't speak to it.
Okay. Who owns Lanier Islands, Tim? That's a question in the comment section.
The property itself is the Corps of Engineers.
Okay.
That's a lease. That's leased to the state of Georgia, and the state of Georgia subleases it to Lake Lanier Islands Management Company.
Okay. Tim, you're back there just manning the boards. Has anything popped into your mind for these gentlemen?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
During COVID, most ramps were just wide open, use at your own risk. Is that not an option at this point? Just to have them open, maybe even lock the bathrooms, but let people have access to the lake and maybe just post that it's using at your own risk.
That has been considered, and it will continue to be considered, but at this point, it hasn't been adopted, I guess is the way to say it.
Okay. All right. How about liability as far as against the Corps for somebody? I've had several people ask me about that. They believe this is a liability issue. And what's crazy is, guys, I'm going to be honest with you, there's 15,000 explanations on the citizen side as to why this is happening. But liability has come up several times. Is it a liability that could go against the Corps if somebody gets hurt if you do use at your own risk kind of thing? So does that come into play?
Of course.
I'm going to defer that to Dustin or Office of Counsel because I have actually considered
That's definitely the lawyers would definitely chime in 100% on that. And like there are obviously, if you're doing it at your own risk, there's also law enforcement involved in it too. So if it was a closed area, so yeah, there are quite a bit of possibilities in that kind of question. And then kind of chiming back what Tim said, referring to your question before about during COVID when some of this was at your own risk. I would definitely say still at this time, because everything is so fluid, that all options still are on the table, and we continue to assess the parks, how much impact it is, and moving forward. Obviously this weekend's going to be a really big test for us, and as we kind of look through, is what other options can we have to try to open up more things or change things, or what's working, what's not working. So I would never say take everything verbatim in stone that this is going to be how it is moving forward 100%. No, things are going to be very fluid.
Okay. Limo 58 wants to know, did the Corps think about asking local businesses for help regarding trash cleanup before the shutdown? Or I know you kind of mentioned the conversation last night was, with possible law enforcement to help, local law enforcement to help patrol. But what about, did you think to even ask the people to help get involved voluntarily or somehow before making this decision? And I realize you two didn't make the decision. But did the Corps even consider that?
So this is a different decision point where the decision point was staffing. We currently have our operations and maintenance contract fully funded for them to pick up trash. If you look back 2 or 3 years ago, or maybe shorter than that, maybe just last year, there was trash everywhere. The bathrooms are dirty. There was a lot of issues with our maintenance. Our previous contractor, we actually had to de-scope the contract by about 25% for 2 years because of funding. That's kind of been fixed. I won't say all the way, but this issue now is not with trash pickup or cleaning or mowing where we could get help like that. This is, we don't have Corps of Engineers employees to go what we call provide service, public service at these recreation areas to ensure. We don't have enough to ensure or just for what we call our visitor assistance program. We like to be in there and talking to people and yes, enforcing rules and regulations and making it so it's a safe, enjoyable experience. I even say a safe family experience. And unfortunately, over the years, we haven't had enough people to do that. And some of these parks are just not attracting the best clientele, but I'm making no judgment, but this is just a staffing issue. And yeah, we'd love to get volunteers and people to help pick up, but that's not the forefront issue in this action.
Okay. Is the contractor getting paid to maintain the ramps that are closed?
They're going to be put in what we call a caretaker status because we don't want the areas to deteriorate. So they may go in there and cut the grass 50% less. We still want to go in there and herbicide and do maintenance so that the places don't fall apart. Because if we let them fall apart, it'll be that much harder to get them back open. So yeah, we'll still be doing some caretaker maintenance in those closed areas.
Okay, and here's another question from Silverpunk. If there's no staff to patrol these ramps, what's to keep someone or a group of tax-paying citizens to move the barricade and use the ramp anyway? What would be the repercussions? How are you guys going to patrol that?
If it happens, it happens. If we find out who did it, we could write them a ticket. We could make them pay for any damage, but that's a case-by-case scenario.
Okay. You got anything, Ron?
Well, the thing, again, I just come back to the lack of notice. And I hate to pound you with the same question over and over again. I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this because I'll be honest, I don't think any of us really thought we'd have somebody from the Corps on here tonight to talk about this. But it just seems like to me, as you've been talking tonight, that there were multiple opportunities to maybe throw a red flag out there and say, hey, guys, it may not be Memorial Day weekend, but sometime this summer, we may have an issue coming. And I just keep going back to that because I think that would have really done a big number on helping people understand what you're going through because we're hearing about this all at one time. And that's not a good way. We know how politically divisive this world is. And I'm not going to talk politics on here. Lightning will strike me before I do that. But don't we have to do better at that? Just getting the word out? Because yesterday you should have seen some of the stuff that was coming out on social media. And it wasn't directed towards you. It was directed towards the 8 million different reasons we saw this was going to happen. And it's nice to hear the real reason. But still, it would have been nice. It would have been even more nice to see this in March. Hey, here's a possibility of what's coming. Or because that right there, these kind of surprise things breed misinformation, and they also breed contempt and a lack of trust in y'all. And we don't need any more of that. We have plenty of it. So again, I just come back to this notice thing because it seems to me as you're talking about some of these things, maybe there was an opportunity, and if so, was it just missed? Or was it you were hoping you were going to be able to do this without it?
Yeah, I got this. This is definitely my lane. So one, if we knew 100%, earlier, definitely even in March would have been fantastic. Like we would have given notice, right? So people would have known, obviously could have mitigated a lot of this anger, things like that. And, people trying to blame 1,000 reasons and none are the right one, right? So definitely would have, right? So the problem was for us is we were in the unknown of what our hiring situation is, things like that too, through like quite a large time through this. Even for us, like our hiring freeze moved, like continued to move to the right, as far as when it would end. So we were trying to adjust fire based off of that. So there are a lot of circumstances that just basically led to this. And obviously, if we would have known, like even earlier, especially in my office, like we much like to be very proactive in how we communicate to mitigate and kind of thing like this. So we would have done as soon as we possibly could have. It's just for us in the unknown of even then when the administrative leaves would kick in for those who took the resignations, things like that too. So a lot of it is really fluid to what we get for information, like as a supervisor, what I get from my staff, things like that too. It changes daily. So like we're just trying to basically try to mitigate through all of that as best as possible. And obviously, for all of you, it's going to be as transparent as possible as well.
Okay. I'm going to hit couple comments that I've seen, and then Scott's got a question. And this goes again to people wanting, I guess they want a solid answer. If you've got the money and it's funded to maintain all of the parks, it seems like, or all the ramps, it seems like the ramps should be open because they should be clean, taken care of. That's something I'm seeing, why close the boat ramps over and over and over again? I've seen it in the comments. If you can pay them to keep them up, the upkeep for it, why are we closing them?
Yep, I can take it.
Yeah, Tim.
It goes back to staffing. So right now, what got added to the open list were those standalone boat ramps. So we still expect a lot of conflict between the single car users and the trailer users. At other parks where boat ramp is a part of the park, that mix is already there, and we need Corps rangers and personnel at those areas to help manage that separation. So it still comes down to the staffing and having to have people, being able to have people there.
Okay. Kyle Brown wants to know, why were you in the unknown about your hiring? Who didn't pass that information on?
As far as when we would receive starts of administrative leave, things like that too. Yeah, all that comes from a higher level HR kind of function, stuff like that. And that's a part of a big Army thing, right? So that is very much so a process. Then, like it gets basically packets get sent up. We don't know then even what if they're going to accept it, right? So there's a process through that too, things like that. So it's not a cut and dry thing. I know people who have not worked in the federal government think it's just working for your your local HR kind of thing. The manager knows and stuff like that. So working for a much larger organization, when it's these kind of administrative cuts, things like that too, like it is really very much so a process. And even as a supervisor, a lot of time you're not even in the loop, and that has nothing to do with this administration. That's just a process of the federal government,
Right.
the employees kind of stuff. So there are oftentimes, like, we as a supervisor, I wouldn't know until maybe a week out that, like, hey, I'm going to lose so and so, right, because they took the retirement, right? So there's those kind of functions do kind of come in. Unless that employee just happened to tell me, right? So there's those kind of things as well, and that's just the nature of the beast of being a federal employee.
Okay, I understand that. There was let's see, why not? Okay, so I get why you pick certain ramps. The ones that were standalone ramps, those are the ones that got they're closed, correct? I want to make sure I'm
No, the one with the
They're
beaches
open,
and
yeah.
all of the day use. From what I got from Tim, is the ones with the day use
You're
and
correct.
combined beaches are the ones that are closed.
those are the ones that are closed.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hey, listen, what about inmates doing community service to clean up areas for cost saving? Well, then you got to, then I would say that your local authorities, Tim, you're a cop, wouldn't that cost the counties and stuff? Not
Yeah, that comes out of the county's dime or city's dime, wherever the park's located. And
yeah, because you're a policeman. That's where that would come from, right?
right, that would come from the local agency.
Okay. This is for Tim. What is the number of park rangers / employees that you need for Lake Lanier to be opened? What's that number that you don't want to go below? What's the minimum you need to have as far as park rangers that would be able to patrol and keep all the ramps open? That was a question in the comments.
Yeah. So at our at our office, and talking about our multiple purposes and our different missions, environmental stewardship and recreation, those two are under what we call natural resources management. So in that split between recreation and environmental stewardship, both the positions in each of those sections are our park rangers. Right now, the environmental stewardship, always the environmental stewardship side primarily deals with our shoreline permits. Excuse me. And they don't work the parks except for in the summers. And in the summers, So right now there's 6 rangers over there. The 3 of them will work on Saturdays and 3 of them will work on Sundays. We just can't take them all away from their shoreline management duties and permit duties. On the holiday weekends, all 6 will work Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So it gets difficult in saying a flat number. On the recreation side, we need 11 rangers plus the chief. And then on the shoreline side or environmental stewardship side, we need those 10 rangers plus the chief. So there's 23,
Okay.
24 in there to get, because we have that mix that where some of these do part-time work, so to speak, in the parks. So we have flexibility to move back and forth. But yeah, to get what we need to run, it's 23, 24 rangers to be able to operate.
Okay. Is the volunteer
real quick? I'm sorry. Yeah. I can last another few questions or 5 minutes, but I'm going to have to sign off pretty quick.
Well, then I'm going to go ahead before you sign off and say thank you for your time. I want to make sure I get that. And we will make sure on our Fish North Georgia group page tomorrow, we'll find your contact information and all that you put out there for people to do that. Real quick, is the volunteer program gone?
No, it's still there. We still have it. We still have volunteers. We've brought them back to the parks that are open.
That's
so yeah, I was going to say, talking about the gates, 2-3 weeks ago, might have been Mother's Day. I can't exactly recall. We were not up at Van Pew, and it got to be a little bit crazy. And the volunteers started getting accosted, so they kind of just ran and left. So we also have to talk a little bit about safety of our employees. So we got to think about our safety of our volunteers. We don't put volunteers in parks anymore unless a ranger is capable of getting to them.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. So since I know you got to go, I don't want you to get cut off in the middle of a sentence or anything. So Tim, we appreciate your time tonight, and I look forward to talking with you more in the future because I want to learn a little bit more about that. So at this time, we'll go ahead and we'll just not dismiss you because that's not what I'm trying to say, but we'll let you go ahead. First of all, hey, listen, dude, I love that Crown Royal box you got behind you right there. That tells me you are a man. Listen, that tells me you are a man of taste, and I like you already. So, but maybe we can get together and we can share some of that. How about that?
So the fun part of this is we're in the middle of a move. So I've got about 400 liquor store boxes around here.
Oh, are you telling me you don't have no Crown Royal at the place?
I think there's towels in that one.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well,
let me say one more thing. So, talking fish in North Georgia, and you mentioned the river. I'd love to come on a separate show topic about how the water management in the river and the dissolved oxygen and all kinds of stuff down there we can talk about the river. I'd love to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, if we do that, I would like you in studio. We ain't too far from you. Can you do that?
Oh, sure.
Okay, we'll set that up.
Tim, last question real quick. Is Chris my contact now that Ernest is gone, or do you have anybody in a dual role right now that's my contact?
So right now, it'd be Eddie Grimes, but if you don't have his contact info, call Chris Arthur. He'll get you in touch with Eddie Grimes.
You got it. Thank you.
All right, bud. Thank you for your time tonight, man. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. So Dustin, now I'm gonna since it's just me and you one-on-one, I'm just gonna be straight with you on this. You're a public relations officer. You're like the press secretary. And so, I'm being serious.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay, listen, I got told by many people today that you're not going to be able to tell us nothing that wasn't coordinated from somebody above, that you had to speak that, you had to basically hit the bullet points. So if I'm just being straight honest, a lot of people think some of your answers are just full of shit. I'm going to be honest. Listen.
Yeah.
And
I understand that, and you're going to have that perspective anyways, though. So you understand like where we do kind of differ, I guess, from the normal kind of press secretary thing that you see, kind of presidential thing. So in my office, my position, I'm the one who actually develops the talking points, right? Like, so I work directly with the managers. I work directly for the commander himself for the district. So like we actually are the ones who like work through policy, things like that, and how to actually take those policies. So, we can kind of, speak the language, right, and kind of understand, so everyone can understand really what we're looking at. So that's why I'm able to kind of speak to not just obviously recreational things, but pretty wide breadth of what the Corps does, especially in the Southeast.
Okay. But you understand where I'm coming from on that.
Oh,
Some
yeah,
people
of
are not, because I mean, especially when it comes to the political aspect of this, there's going to be some people out there that we're going to have a hard time convincing them. You said tonight it has to do with staffing. It has to do with all this. We're not going to be able to convince people that this is not political. And so how do you deal with that?
Oh, that's, yeah. In my office, that's kind of what we deal with every single day. And so really for us, the best thing we can do is just try to be as transparent as we can. Like I said, like pretty much, it's pretty black and white in this situation, really. Like I said, it's, we've been on a hiring freeze. You're gonna have people who, either leave because of retirement, they take the resignation, or they just resign, right?
Yeah.
So you're losing people without the ability to replace the people. It's not complicated math, right? Like you're going to eventually not have as many people anymore to basically do the job you were doing before. So there's no politics at play here. There's nothing like that. It's just kind of a basic staffing function. Who ran a business, right? Like if you're going to lose people, you need to fill them, or you can't do as much.
Okay. Now, let me hit Brad Silvers real quick, because he's asked like 13 times about Carter's and I keep missing it. Anything going to happen on Carter's Lake that you're aware of as far as ramps closing and such?
I'll have to look at that one. Allatoona is the one I was tracking the most. I did not remember seeing anything on Carter's.
I haven't seen anything on Carter's yet. So, all right, go ahead.
One of the things that I think obviously communication is probably one of the things I'm going to continue to go back to. But once you're to the point that the hiring freeze ends, what's the process then of a new ranger being hired? What do they have to go through? You may not know all the steps, but that's something, obviously, as soon as it happens, we need to staff this office, because like we've said 100 times, she's the busiest one you've got.
Yeah, for sure. And so there's no one answer to that as far as the hiring process goes. Because say if it's a new college grad, resource environmental sciences, et cetera, something like that, right? Who've never worked for the federal government, their process of onboarding is longer than say if we got someone from forestry, right, who already is a certified ranger. So they do come on very quickly. That's why there's no just one cut and dry answer. I will say, we've already, basically put up to the managers who hire. They already have the packets ready to go, right? Like it's all ready to go to HR as soon as we're told that we can. So you would see those posted on USA Jobs that we hire from within days of the hiring freeze being lifted. So that process would be very quick. Even for temp hires, even faster. So you'll see once what's lifted, it can be anywhere from 15 to 30 days. You'll have all those positions filled.
Okay. When was the last time you had enough staff?
At Lanier?
Yeah.
That's definitely a Tim question. I know they've always been a little under from what they would want to be. But I know prior they did have 23. I was sure they would always want more, right? You always would want to have excess, right?
Right.
But they've kind of just managed, I believe, 23 along the most of that time.
Okay. If we want to get involved, who do we contact and what do we ask for?
Take Tim's info. I think he gave it to you there. Definitely
Tim.
post it up there. I know for us, like you said, like volunteers would be great. We do got to figure it out with at least for the safety issue, things like that too, where like recently we have seen volunteers ran off just because people being ugly in the public, right? So obviously, right. I think it's probably good for everyone to kind of know things like that too. That like, hey, just be good people when you're on property, right? Like whether you're talking to a volunteer, a ranger, et cetera, or you're just each other, right? Let's try to be civil.
I understand that. Well, and with this coming down from up above, did they do any kind of economic impact study?
Up above, they basically lead it to the ground level to be able to provide that kind of information and stuff as they look at it. So that's why Tim was the one who ended up putting those original packets together of, almost like a checklist, right? Looking through like what impacts from each area and stuff like that. And that gets moved up forward. So really that is at the ground level itself, because the ground level knows the people, right? They know the areas, things like that. Then the more so than someone in Washington would know.
Right. Not sure if you know the answer to this question, but Brad Silvers wants to know how they reopened Carter's a few years ago. All public areas and bathrooms were closed. So do you have any knowledge of Carter's? Or is that something we'd have to hit the local guy?
It was a contracting issue with basically the maintenance is what that was about. It's not that's separate. It's not from manning from Rangers. It's like Tim said, those are two different functions. And I know we were previously under a little more budget constraint when it comes to what we called O&M, like operations and maintenance. So basically that what falls under those, like clean bathrooms, things like that, those kind of contracts.
Yeah. Okay. I tell you what, because we have about 30 minutes left in the show, I'm going to let you go right now. And the reason why is we're going to wait. Once we get you off, we're going to talk dirty about you. We're not. But I want to let our viewers and us kind of discuss what we've heard tonight, kind of get a feel of the people. And I want to make sure that you and I can stay in touch, and I want to stay in the loop of what all's going on. So the number that on your email, is that your direct line?
Yeah, that you can call me from there. I like to talk about other things later on. I was thinking about fish tournaments, things like that too. I'd like to be able to highlight some of that stuff we do with the public and how you guys use the areas, things like that too. So yeah, mutually very much like to talk on that. Okay,
how about when I bring Tim in studio? Maybe we still pipe you in that night, and we can just cover all of that too as well. Would that be okay?
He might really want to talk about turbulence and the fish. You may take up the whole studio, so I don't know.
Do we know if anything in the big, beautiful bill that was passed in the House today has any allocations for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers so you can get back into hiring again if the Senate passes it?
Two different things, right? Really with that, there were some things that this is more on the correlated side of stuff, as far as like project funding, like things like that too. I mean, this is like construction type stuff, and other, some regulatory limits taken off of certain things to push other projects and stuff through, like that. Yes, and it is positive for the Corps. Obviously, administratively, we are standing up a new district in the southeast, the South District. Basically, it's for border wall stuff, things like that too. That's very much so tied in to the law enforcement function there, but actually to build the facilities and stuff for them. So there are a lot of portions of that does greatly affect the Corps in a positive as far as like doing more work. But as far as like Lanier specific in Georgia, we haven't seen anything to that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So going to let you go now, Dustin. I appreciate your time. I appreciate having you as a contact. Now I'm going to be in touch with you for sure. Very, very soon, because I want to keep on top of this. And but we are going to talk about you here for the next. Hey, go for it. It's fine, man. You're like, whatever, this guy. We don't need him. Yeah, I know. Hey, listen. Thank you for your time.
Yes,
100%. Thank you for your time, and I'm glad we were able to keep it civil. I know there's some people that just they don't agree and all that. We're going to discuss that now. So I'll be in touch with you soon. I appreciate it, bud. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. All right, buddy. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, get him out of here so we can talk now. Okay. Anyway, all right. Listen. Guys in the comment section, you just heard an hour and a half of the Corps. Do you believe what he said? What did you like? Was there some things that he said that you liked? Was there some things that you said he said that you didn't like? A lot of you guys said he was skirting the truth or skirting the real issue. Put it in the comment section. What do you guys think he was skirting? The one thing about those two guys is, I kind of get the feeling, I realize what their jobs are, but they're just like us. So, Ron, you've covered politics before. Give me your honest assessment of what you just heard.
I think Tim is speaking from a standpoint of he's trying to do everything he can to get the ramps open. You could tell in his voice as he was talking. He really wants to get the folks out there because he lives here. I think Dustin, while good meaning and some of the stuff he was saying, he was spinning a lot of information. Tim mentioned multiple times as he was talking that they saw this coming down the line. He mentioned when they looking in March at how they wanted to do staff things. So they knew this was coming.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did they know exactly when it was coming? Probably not. But in March, when you see this could be an issue for summer, anytime in the summer, that's when you start putting the info out there, because that way the constituents, the people who vote, can call the senators' offices and the congressman offices and say, look, you've got to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
They had a chance to communicate the problem and maybe head it off at the pass.
Right.
And this is their crown jewel. That's the thing that still continues to get me out of this, is it's not like they're closing a 35-acre lake.
Right.
They're closing down ramps on the busiest core lake in the nation, and one of the busiest lakes, period, in the nation on holidays. That's what gets me about Dustin a little bit. And I think he's well-meaning, but I also think he's keeping his job. And you've got to be careful what you say. I realize he has to be careful because he answers to somebody. I still, after an hour and a half, I still don't know exactly why this wasn't headed off at the pass, because they knew who were going to take early retirement. They knew the ones that are going to take terminal leave, which is you leave your job, but you have enough leave that you're still getting paid for 2 months or however much it is. That's what we never got an answer to. And that's something that needs to have an answer to, because you know what's coming. It's not like it's a surprise. We know what Little Hall is going to look like in 2 days if it's open. We know what Van's Tavern is going to look like Saturday afternoon about 2:00. And I know we would all love to have a webcam up that we could just press a button and say, look at these folks. But this is something that's going to continue to bother them. It's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
This is not going to be a quick fix. And that's a little scary because, and I hate to say this because I don't wish this on anybody, but you have a bad accident this weekend or a bad incident at a ramp that doesn't have somebody there, they're going to close them, folks. I mean, you could tell by the way they were talking. This is going to be a day-to-day situation is what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically said it's fluid. Well, when the federal government says something's fluid, it could be this today and this tomorrow and something else the day after.
Right.
So that's the thing that I come away with. And that's one of the reasons I kept hitting them with the notice thing, because that's an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And they didn't even attempt it. Matter of fact, they started closing ramps before we knew anything about it. Now, Scott knew a little bit about it, or something was coming.
He knew he knew kind of something was coming based upon it. He had a feeling.
You know, you can get that from that information, but not to. I agree with you 100%. You know, about the sure would have been nice to know, but those two guys, man, I think that they're limited of when they were told too, right? But if for the last several years they've already shut down ramps in the winter, like Bowling Mill, and some other thing, because of staffing issues. And hell, I mean, people losing their jobs and staffing issues that they can't support the busier months. If they can't support, Bowling Mill and other types of ramps during the winter, and then now we're in this the busy times. It's interesting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I will say this: there's a lot of people that wanted me to come on here full bore and just trash the guys. There's a lot of asshats out on social media that wanted me to do that as well. Listen, I wanted to open up a line of communication. Now, granted, I realize that probably every answer they got was kind of like what Ron said. They have to say what they got to say. Yeah. But it is important to establish a contact to at least have future information of maybe possibly when things are coming. So while there was some things that I really wanted to say it just, and maybe I should have, but I didn't want to burn that bridge after just building it.
Their hands are tied.
Their hands are tied. I will tell you this, guys. Now, this goes on to some conversations that I had, especially with, and you guys can talk about this, the political aspect. Yeah, there's no reason to yell at those guys. They're doing their job, and just the fact I got them on here was, hell, it was a win-win for me.
I give them credit for showing up.
Yeah, because we
But-
could have trashed them.
Yeah, and they had no idea, knowing ahead of time what was coming.
Yeah,
I mean, they knew people were going to be mad, but if we'd come on here and just trashed them, then that kills any chance of you getting them later for something else. And what Tim said about the river, now granted, this isn't going to be a major talking point right now, but what he said about the river, maybe you can get Philip to come on that night because he fishes it all the time.
yeah, he'd be a good co-guest.
He'd be a good one for that. And
because he's smart.
right. And it's one of those things though. You were stuck. We were all kind of stuck. You don't want to hammer them too hard, but at the same point, you want to try to get a real answer out of them. And I think Tim gave several real answers, but I think sometimes the answer is we don't know.
He did say that several
Right.
times.
And this seems like at least what they were trying to sell. Now, whether this is true or not,
Mhm.
that this was a great big, the perfect storm, so to speak.
Right.
It all happens at one time. Well, I've dealt with enough government stuff over the years. Nothing happens all at one time.
Right.
Sometimes nothing happens, but it very seldom do 5 things come together. And in this case, it took 5 or 6 things coming together all at the same time. And it just so happened to be the week before one of the busiest weekends you're going to have. If that really is a perfect storm that really did happen that way, it seems unbelievable.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you this for the political side of this. Okay. I've talked to a couple of Republicans in the government, and I've actually talked to a Democrat. I am a conservative. I vote Republican, but I do realize at the end of the day, they're all full of shit, to a point. I mean, it's hard to trust a lot of them. I know because they spin everything. I can tell you from a political aspect, the Republicans are going, this is what I heard, and you guys, because I know you guys want to hear a little bit of the political stuff, that from higher up in the Army Corp of Engineers, you might have a couple of disgruntled still people about the current administration. We got midterms coming up here. What better way to flip Georgia from red to blue than to shut down the busiest lakes, hit the core? I mean, let's be honest. Most of your outdoorsmen are conservative anyway. You piss off those guys, then they feel like, and you blame it on, you piss those guys off, they'll look at Trump and them, the administration, as not doing their job and, abandoning their base. And that's kind of what the Republican side of this spin was. That's the way they feel it. On the Democrat side of it, they're going to go straight up. This is a part of cuts and lack of funding, and it's a result of the Doge cuts in government and the downsizing of government. Now, guys, listen, I watch the news. I try to keep up with it. I'm not a politician. But none of these, Justin Nichols says, none of these politicians care that much about us at the higher levels, Dems or Republicans. But I said this the other night, that, we can make them care, but the honest to God's truth, and most of you guys out there know, you're just like me. We've sat on our ass because nothing major was happening around here. We see cuts elsewhere, like up in Washington. We see programs getting cut there, and we watch it on our news. And even some of us, especially conservatives, like, yeah, we need to downsize government. Yeah, we need to do this. But then when it hits home, we're kind of like, what the hell? But we didn't pay attention. We ain't been paying. Now, you kind of had an idea, but like when it comes to meetings, DNR meetings, anytime DNR has a regulation change, they have public meetings. How many of us actually go to them or pay attention?
A couple of years ago, they were talking about making some changes at Altoona.
Yep.
And they turned out a big crowd. And it surprised them because they turned out a big crowd. The guys from DNR were really shocked that many people showed up. And it was about the length limit at Altoona. Folks, I go to these meetings all the time in Rome and Floyd County. And the number of times I've been at a city council or a city commission meeting or a county commission meeting, and there's 4 people sitting out there, would amaze you. People don't pay attention.
Right.
And the farther it gets away from you, the less they pay attention.
Yep.
And that's just part of the deal. But everybody needs to start paying a little more attention. Now, I talked to someone who's one of our representatives and they said that this was an oversight at the Corps. That's what they said. That was a straight up oversight. It's happening. Dustin can't talk to the other other places because he's in the Mobile district.
Mm-hmm.
But according to what I found, Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, North and South Dakota, Montana, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Texas all have a few ramps that are being impacted or closed. Now, I can imagine in Texas that's going to go over really well, just like it is at some of the places here in Georgia. So I really wonder, we know we're not getting the full story.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we'll ever be able to parse the words to figure out the full story.
Right.
All we can worry about is trying to get all the ramps at Lanier and Altoona back open.
Yeah.
But when they talk about staffing, I almost laughed one time.
Oh, whoa. Brian Marcusen's thing. Every one of those states you just mentioned are all red states.
Except for Pennsylvania.
Except for Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And it's like Georgia in that it has been purple for a while.
Right. Yep.
One of the things, though, 4 or 5 years ago, they put in brand new bathrooms at the upper Stamp Creek ramp in Altoona. And I've never seen the doors open. I've never seen the gate open to that ramp.
Really?
They put in brand new bathrooms.
On their website, it says it's closed. It's seasonal. I checked today.
It's always closed.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's how they have it listed on their website.
I guess it can be seasonal all seasons.
Hey, Pennsylvania went red this election.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying it didn't. I'm just saying purple. So, but again, yeah, they're understaffed.
Yeah.
Everybody's understaffed.
Yeah.
But they don't ever seem to fix it.
Right.
And if it takes 25 people to run it, and you know it takes 25 people to run it, and you're not in November and December, you're in your months where you're going to have people here 24/7, 365.
Right.
There has to be a plan, and there didn't seem to be a plan here.
I get it. I would like to ask the viewers, and I want you to be honest with yourself, because somebody up in the comment section said we need to contact our senators and our reps. Be honest, because I'm going to be honest right now. Other than our two senators, I'm not as familiar as I should be. How many of you know your two senators, your representative in Congress? The damn balloons went off because I held my hand up.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. How many of you know your representatives all the way down to the local level? Honestly, all the way down to the local level. I'll be honest, I don't. I'm going to, but I don't right now.
I do.
Well, I figured you would.
I do, but no, I mean, I follow that stuff.
You do, yeah.
That's the only reason I know.
Yeah,
So.
but how many of you viewers out there, any of you guys that watch this at a later date, and how many of you have ever actually sent an email or something to a senator? Because I know Ossoff, who's one of our senators. If you saw his response today on WSB, he was the one already blaming it on the Trump cuts and all happening now. But if you listen to what these guys said, this crap's been going on a while.
Correct.
And, but a lot of you guys are sitting there saying, I'm guilty. I have no idea. I don't. None. I appreciate your honesty, because I don't. I will. I'm going to start paying attention. Old Dirty Cracker. What a hellacious name for a YouTube channel. This has been going on for 2 years on Lake Lanier, just not as many parks as now, but they said 2 years ago they were understaffed. I don't think it has anything to do with the current administration. Hey, listen, I agree with you. Randy Simon says, I do. Good for you. Or Simmons, however you want to say that. Ossoff is a jackass. I don't want to say, I've never met the guy, but I do know that on WSB today, it was his statement to them was, this is the administration's fault. That's the one problem with the political side of it, is you ain't going to get a straight answer.
No, it's just pointing
from
fingers
either side.
They're all going to throw rocks
It
at
is.
each other.
So Ronnie M said, it seemed to me they were beating around the bush and not telling exactly the answers to the questions, which I want to know this. How many of you think they actually knew? Now, with Tim being on the local level, I'm not saying he's the bottom of the branch, but when it comes to the Corps of Engineers, even though he runs Lake Lanier, he's still in that pecking order. He's down there. He may not know, but Dustin being a public relations,
and
he might
headquarters
know.
in Mobile. Yeah.
And he's headquartered in Mobile. he may know more that couldn't. All politicians suck, Rob Young. Yeah, I know, like for sure.
And we don't want Randy Blockett for Congress. So
No.
in the host of that, we do
you know
not
what?
need that.
Listen,
So,
he'd be part of the squad.
yeah.
he'd be one of them turban wearing squad members and all that. I think someone new, but not them, James Archer. And that's
Very
what I'm saying
possible.
is we realized, and I know some people out there in social media who so eloquently said it today, asshat. We realized they weren't going to be able to give us all the everything we want. But was it you that said you called us off about something?
Yeah, I've called us off about one thing before, and I called the office about this, and I got an answer about it. The answer was it was an oversight, and then once they
I forgot that was the conversation.
Through the oversight, then it was, well, pardon the expression, CYA at that point. They have to come up with a reason why this happened. And, and staffing's as good as anything.
Yeah.
Because that still doesn't make any sense to me. The staffing thing, if somebody's retiring, they're retiring. I don't care if you're at the federal government level or if Danny's retiring tomorrow, somebody knows that you're retiring. That doesn't seem like a legitimate reason there.
Okay.
Wasn't that forced retirement? I mean,
It could be, and if it's forced retirement, they know even better.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I want to,
because he said that like Ernest chose to take the retirement early. So
was that one of them things like Trump's been trying to offer to all federal employees?
I think so.
Okay. I'm going to let Scott go back before Scott goes. I want his take, but I want to get Tim's take because Tim, being a police officer, if there's anybody in this room that can read somebody that's full of shit, it's you. You know what I'm saying? You deal with it in your job. Trust me, more people probably lie to you than anybody here.
Every day.
So give me your take on what you heard tonight, your honest take.
I don't think they were lying to us in any aspect. There's only so much information that they know, and there's only so much information that they know that they can give.
Right.
So neither one of them were lying. They were doing their jobs, and I think they answered the questions to the best of their ability.
We still learned a lot, especially when Tim was talking.
We did.
On the local level.
We've had over 200 people viewing this pretty much nonstop, and they've all been very civilized.
Yes, they have.
Thank you very much to our viewers. It's very serious, and everybody remains civilized because that's for better.
Because we didn't want that. I told you, I said this thing could go one of two ways. I said it could be civil, we could have the conversation, or it could turn into a shit show.
And everybody's been
good. All right, Mayor.
I got the same take that you guys do. I mean, what Tim just said, they were very believable, but their hands are tied. And, I think the questions that we asked, they answered them. They're kind of forced in this position to say what they said. And I believed them. I really do. I don't know what we're facing in the next 6 months to a year, but, is this temporary? What's going to happen? No, but I thought they absolutely answered everything that we questioned.
So Paul B, and y'all were talking about ramps being blocked. I wonder if that was an outside contractor that they were using to block the ramps, and that's why it went so quick. Because it makes sense if they don't have the employees, they're not going to be able to block all the ramps and have the equipment to move in big barricades and all that. Pull up lip sticker. I'm on the lake all the time. The only time I've ever seen a Corps of Engineer employee was to count tournament anglers for a permit and write tickets for no parking passes. They've had to be understaffed for a while.
That's true.
That's true, yeah.
And Doug Rice, don't think they could say how they really feel. Now listen, I got that feeling, especially from Tim.
Yeah, Tim looked like he wanted to
deferred
say more.
some stuff over to him, but
But I feel like, and I'm not saying nothing against Dustin. I'm not saying he didn't, and maybe he does. But I got that feeling from Tim that if I could get some of that Crown Royal in him, we might actually got some of it. Tim Hawkins, you better hurry up. It's Scott's bedtime.
Yeah, he said Scott's supposed to be in the bed.
Yeah,
shortly.
Let's see. Do you think anything that was said tonight shocked him? No,
No.
I don't.
Well, Dustin said he had been on He'd been talking to people all day.
Yeah, he said that
So-
before the show. He goes, yeah. So, but I will tell you this. They told me originally I was only going to get about 40 minutes from them. And Dustin probably would have hung the whole time, but I wanted to give you guys a chance to kind of, say what you feel about it.
Right.
But the one good thing about this, like I said earlier, I was trying to, this hit us like, boom, there it was. Kind of like when I go home and I don't, my wife, one day she loves me, next day she hates me. Those days she hates me. I don't see that pop coming up, But none of us saw this coming to the extent of what happened. So I'm trying here with us to open up, that dialogue with them and try to establish a bridge so that maybe, who knows, I might be buddies with Dustin. Like, dude, he might call me one day and say, hey, this is coming down the line. Kind of like Jonathan Farmer does now with the EMC. If I know they're going to cut power in this area, he lets me know. I don't ever get surprised or anything like that. So, but I will tell you, there are still a ton of questions. I think the biggest one for me is this permanent? Are they going to leave the ones open that they said? Are they going to leave the ones closed that they said? Or if right after Memorial Day, it's fluid.
It's fluid.
Are they going to come? Are they going to come right and go boom? How did the list go from 20 to 11 and what made it change overnight? I still don't understand how that could happen. Politics. The people that I talked to, some of the people I talked to, and there's others, basically they probably had their phones ringing over and over and over
Oh yeah,
again.
there were some people lit up on that. And
They
it's
were
like,
lit up.
well, maybe we'll give you Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, because here's the truth fact. We really are only covering the fishing side of it.
That's right.
True.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of pissed off wakeboarders or whatever the hell they are, them guys with the big things.
I would hate to be a local law enforcement officer around this area and be working this weekend because, first of all, it's a horrible weekend to work regardless. But the 911 calls that are going to be generated to some of these boat ramps that are locked down, it's going to be a show.
Oh, yeah.
I heard
It's gonna
there's
be a
already
show.
I heard there's already a ramp. Maybe y'all already know about it. That I've seen a couple of Facebook posts where people are going into the park and parking in front of the ramps and got their barbecue grills out there and stuff.
Yeah.
And the Corps has been called or police have been called. What ramp is that? Have you heard about?
I haven't heard the specific ramp,
I've heard about that.
but I have heard about that. But I'm telling you what's funny is,
And I think Tim alluded to that a little bit. He said there was a problem.
yeah,
Not, it was Tim.
yeah. I'm waiting to see which Billy Bob, and I got some friends that are Billy Bobs. Who's going to be the first one to move some of them barricades?
You know it.
And who's going to be the first one to cut the locks on some of these things and go
Right.
in? It's going to happen.
Well, and Tim and I talked about this earlier. If this had been Alabama Power doing this in Alabama on Memorial Day weekend, they would have burned the dam at Lake Wise
Yeah.
by now. So the fact that nothing truly bad has happened yet is probably a good thing.
Listen, I'm laughing at DA. He comes up with a fishing question at the end of the night right here. Do you think the spotted bass will receive less pressure and bite better due to the ramp closures?
Yeah.
That's a solid question,
That's a
DA.
solid question.
It is a great question.
Not saying.
Well, after seeing Lake Fork, I think I'm going to go there anyway.
God,
How about that?
son of a-
Incredible. I am going to take a trip to Lake Fork next year. We all need to get together.
We should do that. We
Put
should
a
do a
That'd be a
fish,
great trip.
fish
yeah.
North Georgia road trip. So,
Absolutely.
all right. Anyway, guys, listen. You guys in the comment section did a hell of a job tonight. Thank you very much. Again, like Tim said, you kept it civil. And I realize you don't agree with all what they said. I realize a lot of you still have a distrust for them, and that could be very well justified. The point of tonight was, hey, to get you guys here, to get somebody from there and get you talking, and also to get you guys start thinking in your mind, who the hell to call when there's a problem? Your local government, your state government, your senators and your reps and all that, to start getting us as anglers, because we really, listen, when it's all peaches and cream, we sit here, drink a beer, get fat and fish. And then when something's pulled from us, now all of a sudden we're mad.
We're in a wait and see mode right now.
Right now,
Wait
it's
and
always-
see
yeah.
What's going to happen?
But we're paying attention now to
Yeah.
wait and see what's going
Well,
to
I
happen.
think that was
And the
good.
important part is this is going to pass. We know that. At some point, they're going to restaff. They're going to get out of the hiring freeze. Keep paying attention,
That's it. Yeah.
because if you keep paying attention, then you can see these things coming. I told Danny before we started tonight that I kind of thought something like this was coming at some point,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't know exactly what it would be. And so it didn't surprise me that bad. But Memorial Day weekend, That is,
The timing sucks.
it almost, I mean, that's what makes people think that it was on purpose.
For him to say
Sure.
that it's not
Right.
that it was a staffing issue, and you could see that a little bit, and that it was a safety issue, but it wasn't a budget issue. Didn't he say it was
Yes,
not
he
a budget?
did.
Isn't hiring and keeping employees in your budget?
That's what I've always
But
thought.
what if their budget was not big enough for them to hire? So it wasn't really.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a yes or no. I mean,
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I get it. Hell, who the hell knows?
Yeah.
At the
We'll
end of the
never
day, who the hell knows?
You got a line on speed dial, just call him up and find out what's going on.
I know I don't
Hey,
fish in the summer.
You know what I did today on the Fish North Georgia Twitter? I put, hey, lake ramps closing and all that, and linking all that, and I tagged that real Donald Trump and that Elon's real thing. Now, will I get a response?
No.
But if I do it enough, you never know. Elon might be in the toilet because he says he's on the Twitter when he's on the toilet. He might be on the toilet one day and say, hey, this guy hit me. Anyway, guys, listen, thank you very much. Party at FNGO Studios since the lake's closed. Hell no, dude. I ain't got that much space. But I appreciate you guys. I appreciate Scott coming up here.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Appreciate Ron coming up here.
Thanks, man.
Tim, as always, you did a hell of a job. Impeccable. And guys,
Been busy back
hey,
here.
listen,
Engaged.
you've been busy.
Engaged.
Tim got engaged right now. So everybody give Tim a round of applause, like that. He's going to jump
She
in it
23?
again.
She
She looked 23. I don't know. I don't know if I can. Does Scott know of a home for sale that has a boat ramp? I don't know, Scott. Let's start
absolutely.
finding one right there.
Sure.
So, all right, guys, listen. Hey, Memorial Day weekend. Please be safe. Be safe. Be smart. Whatever ramp you go to, whatever fights you got, it still ain't gonna. It still probably be safer than a MARTA. But regardless, be safe out there. If you're on the water, keep your eyes peeled because you might be doing the right thing, but watch your surroundings so you don't become a statistic out there. And we have to listen to people say Lake Lanier is haunted. I don't want to hear that crap anymore. But Tim, you're Bill Belichick. He got engaged.
Yeah,
Really?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Listen, no, hey,
74
listen,
to 30.
if you're 74 and you can I know she might be crazy, but he's like, I ain't got that many years left. I can handle crazy for a little bit.
Right.
I don't blame you.
In my
So,
defense, one of her pictures was of her graduating college, not high school. Some people are like, you're going after a high school, and I'm like, no, this woman is by far from high school. She graduated with a master's degree in public administration last week.
so you got you a smart one.
So yeah, she commented one, and she has lit my phone up with comments on everything that's been going on.
Oh Lord, just
If they get my tournament moved, I'll let everybody know.
yeah, let us know. We'll make sure we post it. So, staying off the lake this weekend. Hey, might be. Yeah, Ken, he's engaged already. So, you guys have a great weekend. We appreciate you. We'll see you with a post Memorial Day weekend show next Tuesday night. But seriously, in all honesty, we love you. Please be safe, and we'll talk to you on the next one.